This is a very interesting topic because if anybody talks about postpartum headache, we always think of post-dural puncture headache, which in my lecture I'll show is not really true. There are several causes of postpartum headache, and since the obstetricians also feel a headache must be a dural puncture headache, and the call is sent to the obstetric anesthesiologist. So it's very important for us to know the differential diagnosis so that we can see what the patient is actually suffering from, and then we come to a diagnosis of it. I bring greetings from my hospital. This is the Sir Gangaram Hospital. It is a 650-bedded super specialty hospital situated in the heart of New Delhi. Postpartum headache is a very common symptom in the postpartum period. And this manifests as cephalic, neck or shoulder pain in the first 6 weeks of the postpartum period. An actual incidence of the total 6 weeks postpartum is not readily available. However, several studies have shown that almost 39% of the parturients in the first week postpartum develop headache. The mean onset of the headache is around 2 days, and it lasts for about 4 hours. And Benhamou et al. Studied about 1,000 parturients in which they noticed that those patients they had excluded those patients who had had a dural puncture, and they found that the incidence of headache after an epidural without dural punctures was around 12%, and even if the patient had not received any epidural, the headache incidence was around 15%. And of course, if a post-dural puncture headache is the cause, then the incidence goes high up, even beyond 50%. Stella et al. Conducted a study. This was a retrospective study in which they actually found that 82% of the parturients are still in hospital at the onset of their headache. The age is around 25 years. 87% of them have received regional anesthesia, and about 29% have had cesarean section. The Headache Classification Committee of the International Headache Society have classified headache into 2 broad groups, the primary and the secondary. The primary, where there is no pathology as such, in which we have the tension type, which is the benign ordinary headache, the migraine, cluster, cervicogenic, musculoskeletal, orgasmic, and lactation headache. While the secondary, we all know that it is due to some pathology. In this, of course, to top the list is post-dural puncture headache, preeclampsia, eclampsia, hypertensive encephalopathy, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, stroke, ruptured aneurysm, subarachnoid hemorrhage, posterior reversible leukoencephalopathy syndrome, postpartum cerebral angiopathy, and meningitis. Again, it's very important to remember that one patient, a parturient may not have only one entity. It can always, the symptoms can be overlapping of 2 different causes. Postpartum period we all know, is associated with maternal fatigue, sleep deprivation, stress, fluid shifts, weight changes, and estrogen withdrawal. And all these factors have been found to contribute to the incidence of primary headache. Primary headache is 20 times more common than secondary in the first week of the postpartum period, and the non-specific tension headaches and migraine actually account for about 2/3 of all these headaches. It could be a recurrence of her own primary disorder, or the primary condition could be presented for the first time in the postpartum period. Seeing the first one, which is the non-specific tension headache, almost 1/3 of the parturients suffer from this. It's usually mild to moderate, lasting for about half an hour to 7 days, often bilateral, non-pulsating, constricting, circumferential, usually associated with scalp tenderness, not aggravated by physical activity, and self-remitted. So a history and a physical is enough to diagnose it. A migraine, the incidence is around 11 to 30%, moderate to severe, pulsating, lasting 4 to 72 hours, recurrent, usually associated with nausea, photo and phonophobia, and the patient usually presents with neurological symptoms preceding the headache, which are known as aura. They are often unilateral, and it is seen that due to hormonal changes during pregnancy, if a patient has a history of migraine, the migraine subsides or disappears, but after delivery it often recurs soon. And it is aggravated by physical activity. Cluster headaches are usually retroorbital, lasting for about 15 to 60 minutes and about 1 to 4 headaches per day. Cervicogenic headaches are associated with cervical pain, muscle tenderness, often bilateral. Musculoskeletals, the incidence is around 11 to 15%, mild to moderate, accompanied by neck or shoulder pain. Lactation headache, although the incidence has not been really quoted, they are mild to moderate, but it is typically associated with the onset of breastfeeding or when the breasts are overfull. These were in general the causes of the primary headaches. However, in the secondary headaches, as we said, it is definitely attributable to some underlying pathology. And if we divided them into 3 groups, the obstetric causes, regional anesthesia, and the neurological causes. So let's see what happens in the obstetric causes. Mostly it is the hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, which could be chronic hypertension, which has got developed preeclampsia, gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, eclampsia. But we know that headache in such situations is a premonitory sign, serious premonitory sign. Often bilateral, pulsating, aggravated by physical activity, and naturally, besides the history and the physical examination, in this, the urine examination will show proteinuria, LFT will be altered, and the platelet count might be reduced. Posterior reversible leukoencephalopathy syndrome, which the incidence again is unquoted, but it has been found to be associated with the pregnancy-induced hypertension and also in other conditions like a uremic patient or a patient having a hemolytic uremic syndrome, but it has been associated with PIH and PRES. The headache is severe and diffuse, and there is presence of focal neurological deficits like a temporary loss of vision. And besides history and physical, in the MRI, you have a string and bead appearance. Here you can see that there's a systemic area of cerebral edema, especially involving the white matter of the posterior circulation, the occipital lobes, posterior parietal, and the temporal lobes. If the patient by chance has a cerebral tumor, the headache is dull, deep, intermittent. You have signs and symptoms of raised intracranial pressure, and papilledema will be there. Cortical vein thrombosis. The incidence in developed countries is quoted as 10 to 20 per 100,000, but in the developing countries it's much higher, and in India it has been quoted as 450 per 100,000 deliveries. It's a non-specific headache, often difficult to diagnose from a post-dural puncture headache. It has a postural component. In fact, a patient of a post-dural puncture headache can, in addition, have a cortical vein thrombosis because of the low CSF pressure. The cortical veins are dilated, the flow may be sluggish. Again, this lady will have focal neurological signs, may or may not be present. Here, after a history and a physical, the CT, MRI, and a venography would show, like in this case, you have the sagittal sinus thrombosis. A subarachnoid hemorrhage occurring in a parturient. It is a sudden, a severe headache that the lady has never experienced ever before in her life. The incidence quoted is around 20 per 100,000. There may be an altered level of consciousness, and it's usually secondary to a cerebral aneurysm, AV malformation, or a hypertensive encephalopathy. Here, a CT scan is done where we can see that there is a subarachnoid hemorrhage over there. The lady might have developed meningitis, which can be seen several days after delivery, fever, nuchal rigidity, positive Kernig sign, vomiting, and seizures are there. And of course here a diagnostic lumbar puncture, CSF culture, and leukocytosis clinch the diagnosis. Spontaneous low CSF pressure is an entity where there is a CSF leak which is secondary to dural tears, but it is not associated with any prior spinal intervention. So naturally, because it's a low CSF, the presentation is typical or identical to a post-dural puncture headache, but there's no history of dural trauma. It's an orthostatic, dull headache associated with neck stiffness, nausea, and tinnitus. A CT myelography might show the dural tear, which is often actually seen in the thoracic region. And if a CSF monitoring is done, the pressure may be low or occasionally normal. And in the MRI, a diffuse meningeal enhancement is seen. A pneumoencephalus, like we have discussed yesterday, is due to the subdural or the subarachnoid injection of air. It is sudden, severe, sudden onset and very severe, and may occur within minutes of injecting, while injecting air in the epidural space while performing the epidural, and the patient may also have neck and back pain, and it may mimic a postural, a PDPH, and because it has got typical postural features if seen after delivery. And here you can see with the where the arrows are, the air in the cranium. Post-dural puncture headache, which always, of course, is in our domain, even with the small spinal Quincke or Whittaker needles, 25, 27, the headache incidence quoted is anywhere between 1.5 to 11%. With an epidural, an inadvertent dural puncture can take place in about 1.5% of cases. And if, of course, an inadvertent dural puncture takes place, then we know that the headache can be as high as 50 or even higher. It usually occurs in the first 72 hours after the dural puncture. It's postural in nature, frontal and occipital region radiating to the neck. It may be mild to severe and incapacitating, accompanied with visual disturbances and the 6th cranial nerve palsy. There may be neck stiffness, tinnitus, photophobia, and nausea. The International Headache Society has several diagnostic criteria for the post-dural puncture headache, in which they say it should be a bilateral headache developed less than 7 days after a lumbar puncture. The headache occurs or worsens less than 15 minutes after assuming the right upright position and disappears or improves less than 30 minutes after resuming the recumbent position. And the headache disappears 14 days after the lumbar puncture. Again, the severity has been classified by Liebecker as score 1, 2, and 3, where 1 is the mild with slight restriction of daily activities, the patient is not bedridden, and there is no associated syndrome, whereas in the second, you have moderate, where there is slight restriction of daily activities, bedridden part of the day, and associated with some symptoms. And in the severe, there is complete restriction, bedridden all day, and associated symptoms are present. Corby has also classified the severity as grade 1, 2, and 3. Grade 1 is where the headache does not interfere with normal daily activity. The VAS score is around 1 to 3 out of 10. In grade 2, it is relieved by periodical bed rest. The VAS score is around 4 to 7, whereas in grade 3, the headache prevents the patient from getting up to eat, and the VAS score is as high as 8 to 10. But for a post-dural puncture headache, the imaging is not recommended for it unless symptoms are suggestive of other potential diagnoses. So, after having seen the causes, the differential diagnosis of primary and secondary headache, how do we go about assessing this patient? So, actually speaking, it's the obstetrician who does come in the picture initially, and a history taking is very important. If the patient gives a history that she had a similar headache before becoming pregnant, and it is the same kind of headache that has recurred now, it's not a big deal, and the patient, you do not worry, and you tell her to take the routine analgesics which she was taking, or you can prescribe. And of course, during the history taking, you'll always do a physical examination that there should be no additional focal neurological symptoms. Now, if she gets all right, that's fine. But if she continues to have, then you must investigate. And this is the time a multidisciplinary approach should come. Laboratory tests are done, a neurologist is consulted, and early neuroradiological imaging is suggested. So if you can see over here that if the patient comes with a severe headache and you have to analyze after examining her, if she is normotensive, there is no neurological deficit, you treat her as a normal primary headache, which could be commonly the tension or the migraine, give her analgesics. If she responds, that's fine, it was migraine. By chance, if she doesn't and if she had had a regional, then you consider PDPH. If the patient was having hypertension and you suspect there's proteinuria and there's seizures, you naturally suspect preeclampsia, eclampsia, give the treatment with magnesium sulfate and other things. If the patient responds, fine, that was the reason. However, if she refuses, if she does not respond, it goes on to imaging. But if in the initial examination you do get neurological deficits, the neurologist is consulted and immediate cerebral imaging is done. If the patient has a PDPH, we do the usual treatment that we give, fluids, analgesics, caffeine, blood patch is done. If the patient responds to treatment, that's fine, it's a spinal headache, and if not, the imaging. And once the imaging is done, naturally, depending on the cause, the treatment is given. If it's subarachnoid hemorrhage, you would may go in for surgery. If it's a cortical vein thrombosis, then the anticoagulation and the respective treatment is given. Therefore, to conclude, postpartum headache is a common symptom. It's usually benign, a primary headache. However, if not relieved, a multidisciplinary approach should be followed. And remember, not all headaches are post-dural puncture headaches. Thank you very much. This is the photograph of Shillong where we were last year. And I take this opportunity to invite all of you to New Delhi, where we are holding the 5th National Conference of the AOA. Our theme is Current Concepts in Obstetric Anesthesia. It's on the 7th, 8th, and 9th of September. And you can do registration outside. Thank you very much.